Okay, welcome to the last sessions of today's international conference, Prominent Women in ASEAN Community. Our next speaker, she is a senior consultant in Singapore General Hospital and the director of neuro anesthesia and neurocritical care. She's very involved in teaching both medical students and postgraduate doctors as members of the core faculty anesthesia residency program, adjunct assistant professor, Duke NUS Graduate Medical School, and clinical lecturer in the Young Wu Lin Medical School. She chairs the Star Budding Researchers Award and the Transplant Oversight Committee. She's also currently serving on the Dover Park Hospice Governance Council and co-chair the fundraising committee. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Jun Go.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would first of all like very much to thank the organizing committee from the Institute of Thai Studies and Chulalongkorn University, Faculty of Education, Chulalongkorn University, for this invitation to speak at this wonderful anniversary celebration in recognition of women in our ASEAN community. Oops, let's get this right. I'm from the Singapore Council of Women's Organization. We were established in 1980 as a national body that coordinates all women's organizations in Singapore. So we have more than 50 member organizations that represent over 500,000 women, and we serve to unite them and work towards the ideals of equal space, equal voice, and equal worth. One of the initiatives of the Singapore Council of Women's Organization is the Singapore Women's Hall of Fame. This award was first launched in 2014, and we have 13 categories in our award. As you can see, we award women for their achievements in advocacy, business, education, health, law, science, and even sports. So there are 13 categories, and we have two panels. One is a resource and selection panel to help us decide who is to be inducted every year. And then there's a selection panel, which is chaired by Professor Tommy Koh, Ambassador at Large. And other members of the panel include Dr. Nolene Hazer, former Under-Secretary General of the United Nations, herself an inductee in 2014, and Mrs. Rosa Daniel, Chief Executive Officer of the National Arts Council. Our criteria in selecting women to win this award is they have to be a citizen or resident of Singapore or a woman who was born in Singapore and meets the following criteria: a pioneer in her field, set new standards of achievement, made significant and enduring contributions to her field and to society, and elevated status of women, open new frontiers for women and society, and be an inspiration to others. So my choice today for today's ASEAN Inspiring Woman is Dr. Kawanjit Soin, who is a campaigner dedicated to improving the lives of women, and she fulfills more than one category. Okay. Dr. Soin is an amazing woman. She is recognized in several domains, and she is Singapore's first female orthopedic surgeon. That is a surgeon that operates on the bones, which if you think about it, in the 70s, is very rare for a woman to be a specialist, especially in the surgical field. She's also the first female nominated member of parliament and is one of the well-known feminists in the country. A strong advocate for women's rights as well as social issues, Dr. Kawanjit Soin is a founder of several welfare and advocacy organizations in Singapore. And she was inducted into our Hall of Fame in 2014. In many of her interviews, Dr. Soin shared that she aspired to be a doctor when she was only 10 years old, when she had met an Indonesian doctor who inspired her to heal people. She shared that at that point in time, when she first started out in her medical career, the idea of a female specialist doctor was unconventional, and many did not believe that women are capable of becoming a specialist doctor. She cited the reasons that women were less likely to become a doctor because of marriage pressures as a woman, and existing structural implications, because at that time in Singapore, there was a quota on the intake of female medical students. We only took 20 to 30% of women into the medical school, which of course created obstacles for women who wanted to pursue a career in medicine. But since 2003, this quota has been lifted. So now we have equal numbers of women and men going into medical school. An ophthalmologist, Dr. Gay Min, says that Dr. Kawanjit Soin was an inspiration to the young doctors in the 1970s. The accepted thinking in those days was that women and surgery did not go well together, and if a woman was rash enough to take up surgery, she would have to sacrifice family life, children, and all feminine pursuits. Needless to say, she bucked the trend because Dr. Soin is happily married to a retired Supreme Court judge, Amarjit Singh, and the couple has 3 sons and 7 grandchildren. So she's been extremely successful in her family life as well. To be frank, actually, she also inspired me because when I was a medical student, I heard about her and I realized that there's so much more, even outside our chosen profession, that we could do to improve the lives of women. Kawanjit Soin was outstanding in her choice of specialty in the medical field. She became a fellow of the Royal Australasian College of Surgeons and was a member of the Academy of Medicine in Singapore in 1975, and she was a recipient of a Colombo Plan Scholarship to train in hand surgery in Australia in 1972. She then became president of the Singapore Hand Society 1989 to 1990, and she was also a visiting consultant in the hospital that I work in now, Singapore General Hospital. In her later years, she became a private physician as a consultant orthopedic and hand surgeon in Mount Elizabeth Hospital in Singapore, and has been practicing for over 40 years, contributing to society through her medical work. Now that's just in her medical practice, okay? Her quest to help people extend far beyond hospital consulting rooms and operating theatres. She's a tireless proponent of women's rights, holding several positions in welfare and advocacy organizations. Kawanjit believes that feminism means equal respect and consideration for both sexes, and she's unashamed about calling herself a feminist. In 1985, she co-founded the Association of Women for Action and Research, also known as AWARE, which promotes gender and human equality and sought to eliminate violence against women and girls. AWARE is actually one of the societies under SCWO as well. She was president of AWARE in 1991. Okay, excuse me for my sore throat, because actually last week I didn't have a voice at all, so took a lot of cough mixture to try and get my voice back to be here. Kawanjit applied to be a nominated Member of Parliament, and this decision paved the way for her foray then into politics from 1992 to 1996. She entered Parliament with little preparation, and she described her decision to enter Parliament as plunging into the deep end of an icy pool, because at that time there were very few voices from civil society, and the atmosphere, in Singapore, is to speak up is quite sterile. Even so, she rose up to fulfilling her duty on her very first day in Parliament and continued to challenge the status quo ever since. For the record, she has earned herself a reputation for being a nominated member of Parliament who has asked the most number of questions in Parliament. As Singapore's first female nominated member of Parliament, she raised a lot of topics, including female representation in politics, ethnic groups, self-help groups, health policies, aging, immigration issues, all very pertinent to society. Her most noteworthy contribution to Singapore was her integral role in changing the legislation pertaining to family violence. She moved a family violence bill when she was a member of Parliament in 1995. Unfortunately, the bill was defeated, but there were many positive effects thereafter. First, it gathered a great deal of media attention and then spotlighted the subject of family violence to the forefront of the public sphere. The public and society were educated on spousal rights and what is acceptable and unacceptable in the eyes of the law. Secondly, some important legislative practices were implemented because of the Family Violence Bill. After the bill was defeated, the Women's Charter was moved in May 1996 and sent to a select committee, and finally amendments were passed in Parliament. Her work resulted in the introduction of personal protection order for members for victims of domestic abuse. In the year 1992, this charismatic female feminist leader was also presented the Woman of the Year Award by Her World Singapore for her outstanding efforts in bringing a higher profile to women's issues. In 1997, she was the founding chairperson of the Singapore Committee for UN Women. This is one of our member organizations as well. Her work at UNIFEM Singapore chapter extended beyond Singapore, and Dr. Soin was a champion and also the driving force behind programs which aim to alleviate poverty, promote education and healthcare throughout Southeast Asia. One such project was the region's first Ethical Equities Fund, which educates and promotes companies to practice ethical conduct and provide equal opportunities for women at the workplace. Dr. Soin was presented with then the Lifetime Achievement Award by the United Nations Development Fund for Women for consistently excelling in her job and her selfless contribution to society, especially towards the less advantaged. She's still going strong. In 2007, she formed a society called WINGS, which is a society for women's initiative for aging successfully. Okay. This is a non-profit institution focused on empowering women to embrace aging with confidence. WINGS aim to empower women to age successfully and to live well by being socially connected, staying healthy, being financially secure, and to fulfill their aspirations and have enriching experiences. Dr. Soin believes that Singapore should work towards being the best country to grow old in, where old age is valued as much as youth, where employers, government, corporate, private sectors all welcome and accept older workers, where aging is a life process that everyone looks forward to and not fear. She consistently champions for Singapore to embark on a positive aging agenda. She cites research by Harvard economist David Bloom and others that show that a 10-year increase in life expectancy combined with a healthy aging agenda can make a country's GDP increase by 1%. And to achieve this goal, Singapore needs to dispel the preconceptions that growing old means being sick, infirmed, and dependent. And we should widen our outlook on aging beyond just building more nursing homes and more senior activity centers. There's a large percentage of aged who are healthy and desire to be independent in a society that can look at this population of elderly to be useful and productive. She states that agencies should review and evaluate labor requirements, educate across industries in a systematic way to redesign jobs, educate on employer companies, on employment mindsets, so that older people can fill the vacancies, jobs, especially in Singapore, where we face a very rapidly aging population. And then in 2014, she was also one of the inductees in our SCWO, Singapore Women's Hall of Fame, under advocacy and activism, not only for being a female-nominated Member of Parliament, but also a campaigner dedicated to improving the lives of women. Kawanjit has been presented with many awards from such a wide spectrum of categories. But regardless of the number of awards, one thing remains true: her unwavering fervor to better society and in the different communities of Singapore. She continuously asks questions, challenges current ways of how things should work, and along other activists, her constant desire to seek solution for gaps, bringing up concerns, made the discussion at civil society more robust, helped to get access to information and knowledge on issues that face citizens that could capitalize and enact social change. She believes that the country's governance and socio-economic policy should be transparent, and policy should consider civil society when we make any decision for the nation. Kawanjit Soin is now a global ambassador of Help Age International, a UK-based international NGO serving disadvantaged and older people worldwide. She was on the board of Help Age International for 9 years and stepped down as vice president of the organization at the end of 2010. In one of the Straits Times article, and I will quote her here, "Change is on our doorstep. Old age, once the privilege of few, is now the destiny of many. We have got to start looking at longevity at every level: the individual level, the corporate level, the governmental level, and societal level. It worries me that we are talking about how we don't have enough workers, especially in Singapore, and an impending labor crunch, yet we are letting older people lie by the wayside." To showcase how productive she is, in 2015, she co-edited a book, Our Lives to Lead, Putting a Woman's Face to Change in Singapore, which explores and documents how women's roles, choices, and voices have changed over the last 50 years, how women from all sectors of society have helped shape the Singapore we know today. Even this year, she published a book called Silver Shades of Grey. Actually, I was at the reading when it was published, that discusses aging with an ASEAN-Asian focus. The book offers operating instructions for life, a guide to engaging passionately with age, dealing with subjects such as health, happiness, loneliness, dementia, sex, gender, marriage, abuse, respect. The book touches on how aging affects us as individuals and as a society. Okay. At the age of 76, Kawanjit is still on the go and still up for more. Her contributions through her medical work, political, societal activism, and through her familial friendships, social networks are very inspiring. These contributions lay impactful groundwork for generations to come and inspire future young leaders to take on the up-and-coming challenges for the next few decades. She still carries hope for the future, and she urges, there is strength in numbers. If you put your heart and mind to it, and you have a group of people to brainstorm, network, you can come up with great ideas, great strategy, and there should be no reason why we all cannot get ahead. If you want to achieve something, you just have to find a route to it. I find this is a very similar message given by a lot of great women leaders. Dr. Kawanjit Soin is a living testimony of a woman who wears many hats, excelled in a male-dominated profession, and ex social change, dedicated to helping community, improving inequalities in society, and thereby influencing our younger generation. There are some references here, and I would like to thank our organizers and Thailand, Bangkok, for the warmth of your hospitality. This has been an excellent conference. I've learned much from my fellow speakers and from the exhibition that is so well curated. The student performances were marvelous. Thank you all for such a lovely experience.
Thank you so very much, Dr. June Go. And since we are sitting next to each other, we exchanged some talks, and she really loves Thailand, and I hope that you will come back again. Four more. Our next speaker, he's the second male speaker at this international conference, apart from Professor Dr. Vijit Srisan this morning. He's the Executive Director of the Amarita Performing Arts, a contemporary dance and producing company based in Cambodia. He holds an MA in Arts Management from the State University of New York, Buffalo. He has received several awards, including Fulbright Scholarship, Asian Cultural Council, and the King's Medal for his contribution to the arts and culture. In this capacity, he has represented Amarita and Cambodia at workshops and conferences and produced works, tours, and festivals in Cambodia and abroad. He's also co-founded Contemporary Dance Platform in 2013, enabling emerging Cambodian choreographers to create new works as they continue to develop their own Cambodian contemporary dance vocabulary. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rithisan Kang.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start by thanking the organizers, Faculty of Education and the Institute of Thai Study for the opportunity for myself to be here to talk, to share some story from Cambodia. At the same time, we have been enjoying a lot, talking to people, Thai people and people from different parts of the region, and also enjoying the food very much. I love the dessert here. So I think what I'm going to talk about is actually to share the story of two female artists in my country who are still the living artists. They are still alive, they are still active, and they are still practicing their work, their art. They are working, and their life has been phenomenal. They have gone through challenges, cultural, social, and historical challenges. in spite of those challenges, they are still working so hard, and they have been contributing so much to the Cambodian developing art scenes. But I believe that in order for me to talk about the two of them, I think it's also good for me to also kind of give a little bit of a background of Cambodia, and so that it can give you a little bit of historical, cultural context. So it's not going to be a PowerPoint, but it's going to be like a number of photos keeping going as I'm going to talk to you about all this. If you know a little bit of Cambodia, is kind of, the first thing people, some historian would talk about either the splendid Angkor Wat or the killing field that happened a few decades ago. So back between 1975 and 1979, the country fall into a regime that is called the Khmer Rouge, and it is a tragic genocide for 3 years, over 3 years, 1.7 million were killed. And the targeted people are actually those who are intellectual or educated or associated to something that is considered to be high culture. And in that, the artist that was at that time was considered to be so related to the royal court, the royal family, are considered to be the enemies, so they are subject to be terminated. In 1979, fast forwarding a little bit, 1979, the country was liberated, and during the genocide regime, what they did is actually evacuating the people from the capital, Phnom Penh, to different parts of the country, and actually to work, hard labor, working in the rice field, because the objective is to turn the country into a agriculture rice field where everyone has to work and share the resource. So right after the end of that regime, everyone is going back to their hometown. There was at that point, there was an announcement put on the radio to invite all the artists to come back. And so these artists come back and join together in Phnom Penh, in the capital, and start counting. It's actually literally remembering name and who is doing this art and who's making that art. And then the conclusion at that time was that around 90% of the artists were killed or died of starvation. That's what they found out. It was a very painful moment for the artists. But it's also motivation for them to understand the urgency. They have a big sense of urgency about transferring the knowledge to the younger generation before these surviving artists, these surviving masters go away. And they feel the compulsory, the obligation to continue to revive and to preserve this culture. So that was what happened. You see in the photo the Cambodian classical dance together with some master. This is just a few photos, but those are the things that was going on in Cambodia since 1979, 1980, all the way until now. When I started working at my organization, Amrita Performing Arts, in 2003, back in 2003, the national mission was still revival and preservation of the traditional cultural heritage. I had the pleasure to spend my 15 years of career working with the two artists that I'm talking about. And I'm going to start talking about the first one, whose name is Sopalin Jim Shapiro. This is Sopalin. Sopalin was born in the 70s. I think she's now in her 50, early 50. She went through the Khmer Rouge in her childhood. So she was in the genocide regime and survived. And she was among the first generation to go back to the School of Fine Art in Phnom Penh after the Khmer Rouge. And she started her training in the classical dance. She was trained in the female role. She was trained in a few other roles, Cambodian classical dance, they have the male role, the female role, the monkey role, and the giant role, and those are the things that those are the role that she was trained in by those surviving masters that I told you a little bit in the history of the historical context of this country. So Pelin was married to an American and moved to the U.S. and she had the good opportunity to go to UCLA, the University of California, Los Angeles, where she went to the Department of Arts and Culture, and she pursued her Bachelor of Fine Art and Master of Fine Arts there. That was the place where it also kind of unlocked a lot of her cultural and artistic potential. She started creating work beyond, and that really marked her career. She started creating beyond her own traditional boundary. One of the work that she created and in the early day of her career was actually using the Cambodian classical dance to interpret Shakespeare's story, the Western Shakespeare story of Othello. And she creating that, and there were a lot of, confrontation, eyebrow raised by the elder master of the country. Because these are the master who actually went through the genocide and a lot of things, they lose a lot of things, and then here, a new choreographer, outstanding, and start creating work of the Western literature. So to them, it's like a complete destruction to their traditional culture. In spite of that, Sopelin has this, strong belief about how this can enrich her own traditional culture, her own, enrich her own dance tradition. She has a lot of confrontation, but she managed to negotiate her artistic approach, her artistic endeavor, so that the work was created. Sopelin's work have been presented around the world, in various cities in the U.S., in Europe, to name a few, like in the Disney Hall in L.A. or the Joy Theater in New York City. So these are really a high-profile venue that has presented her work. In this picture is another Western artistic work by Mozart called Magic Flute, which is about, the story is about the King of the Sun and the Queen of the Nights. But she also was commissioned by the American respected director Peter Seller to interpret this story in Cambodian classical dance, and she did. And she did by introducing the male performer into the classical dance. And that was a big problem because Cambodian classical dance is strictly performed only by the female role. So she was in a lot of trouble. She wanted to create the work. She believed that the feminine and the masculine kind of body that she introduced in her work create a very strong essence for her work. She doesn't want to call it classical dance, she wants to call it just a work. But, the other elder artist doesn't agree with that, and this time they really did not approve that, and they did not let her go away. So she had to actually later on change all the male role, change all the male dancer to the female, to turn it back so that she can do that. The work also toured to Europe and did a lot of things. So she moved on into doing not only interpreting the story from the Western literature, but she kind of make it less about, Cambodian classical dance is about the messenger to God. This is sacred dance. This is, the dance will talk to God. The dance is serving some religious purpose. She actually has an idea of making this sacred form more relevant to the everyday life. And in one of the pictures where I'm going to point to you, she started looking back at some social issue, psychological issue in the Cambodian society, and start creating work that can address those issues. And one of that, she's actually choreographed a new work called Pka Sla. And Pka Sla means the wedding flower. And it's actually talking about the forced marriage during the Khmer Rouge, during the genocide regime. This is actually Pka Sla. This is not this one, but the other one, the one before that. In the Khmer Rouge regime, it was a very suppression regime that even marriage, they will arrange it for you. They actually put together a line of men together and a line of women together, and the government at that time decided that you get married. And then they spend 5 minutes, okay, now you get married, you get married, you get married, and then you go to live together. So that was a big thing that actually when they have the International Tribunal Court, this case was brought, and then they were actually sued for violating the human rights for that. This is one of the cases brought against those former Khmer Rouge leaders. So she used her work to talk, to work, to create work, and the work that speak, the work that create voice, so that those people who are the victim from this, who are in their 50 now, or in their 40 or 50 or 60, but they dare not talk about it. Some of the couple divorced after the Khmer Rouge. Some of them still live together and hate each other and have all the family problem. But this work helped to address this sacred form become of social good, become something that is very useful to help these people. I'm going to show you the video of that work so that you can have a bit of a glance of that. She worked with some other, these are the real victims who were forced married during the regime, and she created work about their story, their life story. So this is very short because we don't have much time. We used to show the whole video, but we don't have much time. But I just want to say it was through her own research and interview with all these people you saw in the video, and she picked up many story with them, from them, and they start creating work. And this work become something to provoke this victim, so that they start talking about their own problem. And they start sharing this problem, even they know that it's inside them. They don't want to talk about it. But because of this, it helped them to speak about it, to talk about it. And that is a lot of healing that were done. They did not do it only just as like a theater performance, but they also have session that they actually have conversation with those people who are considered to be the victim. And it has actually helped a lot of people. Those elder people who lived through the regime. At the same time, the younger generation of Cambodia, the second or the third generation of Cambodia after the war, did not understand this. And this helped to reconcile them as well. They understand, oh wow, this is what our parent generation went through. And that is the reason why they are behaving the way they do. Sometimes they are not, they are so insecure very easily, and so it has actually reconciled the younger generation and this generation who lives together through that. So this is, Sopelin, Jim Shapiro, who through her art actually has not only looking further possibility beyond her traditional boundary, but she also use the sacred form, the form that is to worship God, for the king to communicate to God, for her to also have some voice in the social problem. The next, sorry, what did I do? The next one that I'm going to talk about is another choreographer who is not at the same generation, who did not live through the Khmer Rouge, but she was born. She was born after the Khmer Rouge. She was the second generation. And her name is Chaychan Ketcha. She was very similar to Sopelin in two things. They both went to the School of Fine Art in Phnom Penh. They both Ketcha also had the great chance to study at UCLA. So in the same department, the Department of Art and Culture, where she studied dance choreography. So Ketcha came from a family that is a lover of the art, the family that would send the two kids that they have. The brother, her brother was sent to study music composition, and for her, her mother wanted her to study classical dance. She was trained in the classical form. She became one of a very important dancer. And, you know, she did a little bit of choreography in the classical form, but her eye is always looking into doing something more than her classical form. She was born after the Khmer Rouge, and she was so brave. She inherited a little bit of what her mother, who was the victim during the regime as well, but she always looked into something new. She founded her own, you know, small group outside class, outside her dance class, that she can create new dance that is not classical dance, but allowing her to do something else. So she started with something very, you know, very crazy, very, she doesn't know what she's doing, but she would come together, 10 of them, and start something new. When Ketcha got the chance to study in the US, when Ketcha continued to work through Amrita, through our company, Ketcha had the chance to do international collaboration project with artists from around the world, you know, from here, from Thailand, Pichet Klunchin, or from Indonesia, or from Europe, or from the US. Her collaborative project allowed her to learn a lot about contemporary initiative that help her understand that there are philosophy, there are potential, that she can actually look at her own classical form so that she can create work that she would like to do. The work that would correspond to her social, economic, historical context of her country. Ketcha creating a couple of work and several work in her life. She also, her work got to present, you know, in Singapore, in Hong Kong, or in the US. The work that talk about her own experience. One of the work that I would like to talk about is she created a work called My Mothers and I. This is Ketcha, born after the Khmer Rouge, but understand the trauma that her mother inherited. And she looked into that, and she see the contrasting behavior between herself as the younger generation and her mother, which is so different from her. The work is a monologue, but also has dance in it, also has singing in it, that allow her to question and to make herself understand why her mother generation, why her master generation are behaving that way. So I would like to show the photo of this. I would like to show the video of this as well to just give it a little bit of an idea. So this is Ketcha's work, My Mother and I. is the work that was presented in Paris at Theatre Le Tamac. So you see a little bit of different work by two artists who was both trained in the sacred form, the classical form, but they're using their art, their craft, to have this social relationship, to talk about their own country's problem. When you saw the first choreographer, so Peline, still finding a lot of possibility within her classical form. She make a lot of adjustment or development within the costume or the music. You can also see Ketcha, who is a younger generation, is exploring beyond. The movement is beyond the traditional movement, though she were trained and the dynamic of her body is in the classical form, but she go beyond that. Another work that I would like to show you quickly as well is another work by Ketcha called Departure. Departure was created in 2016 when Ketcha was responding herself as a choreographer in Cambodia, as a young generation, as the people of the country, as a person of the country that during the genocide or the tragic history, her parent was running from one place to another place. And then the next thing that she heard was actually the refugee crisis in Syria, that people were running around and looking for survival. And she responded to that because she feels that as a citizen, not just a citizen of Cambodia, but for her, she's also the citizen of the world that has the obligation to speak about her own history that took place 30 years ago, but it's also related to somebody else who is suffering from that repeated history in a different geographic location, in a different context in somewhere else of the world. And this word Departure was created in response to that. So, considering the history of the arts and culture in this country, these two female choreographers are the people who in Cambodia play an important role in preserving the tradition, contributing to the preserving of the tradition, the dance tradition in this country. But at the same time, what is very important for them is actually both of them look for initiative, looking for have broad effort in terms of pursuing further, continue to develop their own dance tradition, extend it, looking for possibility to create more things. And it's not only the art and the culture for the art's sake and culture's sake, it's for them to participate in the dialogue about the society in the current day, in the modern day as well. Both of them are, has in their professional career, has received various awards. For example, Sopilin received the Nikkei Asia Prize or the National Heritage Award from the US. At the same time, Ketchak received the ZKB Patronage Award from Switzerland for her performance and a few other awards that they have done. Both of them have done a lot and have achieved so many things. Their work have been presented around the world. I would like to finish this by saying a few things, a few words that I remember both of them said. So Pilin, at one time, she said she revenged, revenged the Khmer Rouge. The Khmer Rouge wanted to destroy the whole culture, the dance. But look what happened now. It's still ongoing, it's still alive, and we are still making the art. And to her, that is revenge. And that is very strong. For Ketcha, she said she was not born during the Khmer Rouge, but she inherited from her family. She could feel the sense of anxiety within her. She could feel the sense of insecurity within her. And as an artist, she has the obligation to look into it, to dig deeper into it, and to talk about it. And through the art, she can do that. So these are the artists that are still working hard and working actively in their art making in Cambodia. And I would like to conclude here about the stories that I have been sharing about these two artists in Cambodia. And I want to thank again to the organizer for the opportunity to talk, and I want to thank everyone here for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Okay. You have 7 minutes. I have to keep my schedule. Okay, so please อาจารย์จะมาตรงนี้ก็ได้ไหมครับ
So, very quickly, Amrita, my company, was founded in 2003, and the goal at that time, the purpose of that, the mission of that time was preservation and revival and preservation of Cambodian traditional performing arts. We did that for the first few years, and I will call it step one during that time. And then, from that step one, a generation of younger artists come up and do their craft and traveling around and getting inspired by everything around the world. They also actively participate in dance workshop abroad. They also seeing other shows. They also going to residencies. And from that, we have this passion within them to do something beyond the traditional boundary. We actually responded by trying this contemporary initiative, and I have to talk about our first trial. Our first trial in contemporary dance was actually with Pichet Klunchin, the Thai choreographer, because we can see the similarities and the sacredness of the form. There are a lot of things to believe, and I have to acknowledge that Ajahn Wee was at that point at the Department of Dramatic Art was helping putting this together. That helped us to start that and allow the artists at that point to continue to work and to understand and explore, still exploring what is contemporary dance and what is their own Cambodian contemporary dance. And this initiative continue by beyond Pichet. We have other artists from around the world who would like to help interested in working with these artists trained in the classical form, not necessarily just come and create new work, but those who are interested to have the dialogue with Cambodian artists. And we have a bunch of around 15 to 20 of them, and to help them seek their own voice and seek their own way of creating the work. So I think between 2005 to 2010, it was a lot of work created from that process, and that for us is step 2, creating work, and then work touring around, Southeast Asia or to Europe and to the US as well. From that, these artists becoming more confident, and they are equipped with more skill set that they can tap into that and continue, and they talk about creating their own work. We responded in 2013, recently 5 years ago, by creating the contemporary dance platform, and that is actually the program that allow any of the artists, the dancer that we have worked with, and it's a bunch of maybe 18 of them. If they have an idea of creating a work, they can work. And throughout the past 5 years, work has been created. We call them expert, like Pichet or like other people from Indonesia or from around the region, came back to see the work and to give critical feedback. And for the past 5 years, it has been tremendous capacity building for Cambodian artists in the contemporary dance, and they have been creating work, performing work by themselves very actively within the country, and only a few outstanding Cambodian dancers are now, collaborating with artists in Japan or collaborating with artists from Europe, but most of them are working at home. So it's a bunch of now the population of that is growing from around 15 to 30 of them, still working very actively in this small art scene of Cambodia. Thank you. There are work by artists who Cambodian way of creating contemporary work is actually they revisiting their past, their heritage, and see what are the possibilities now and the present, and look into the future and create the work. So this is kind of the attitude for that. So there are artists who are inspired by the Khmer Rouge regime and this tragedies, and create work that talk about that, but not only talk about that just for the sake of talking about that. It's not about telling that story only to get people to know about that story, but they talk about that so that it has relationship on what is it now and how can it go into the future. But there are also artists who create new work that has nothing to do with the Khmer Rouge, with the genocide. They only create work about the relationship between mother and son. Someone else, there were demonstrations in Phnom Penh, and then the government was putting, the barrier to stop all the street, and this artist was annoyed by that, and he felt the tension for himself as an individual and for his community that he's living in, and he create work that talk about that. And there are other artists that use contemporary dance to talk about the religious belief. So there have been variety of other topics that can either be related to that, the past, or it can be just something else they are seeing in their current society. Funding for support for the performing art in Cambodia is a bit less fortunate in other countries. in the region. The government fund and runs its own traditional institution, traditional art institution, and they are actively doing that. The fund for that has increased, but there are little interest. There are more interest, personal, emotional interest for the contemporary work, but in terms of financial investment, it has not been so fortunate yet. Amrita happened to have the U.S. non-profit status that we can raise the money in the U.S. and from other parts of around the world and to support. So the economy for the contemporary performing arts in Cambodia is actually externally generated.
So is there any conflict between the classical dancing and the contemporary dance?
There is. When these artists start moving forward with this, the elder master raised a lot of eyebrow and say this is a complete destruction of the traditional form that I've been helping to build, to rebuild. It's one thing we acknowledge is that it's a valid concern, and it's like alarm clock. Even we can all get up in the morning, but we need this master to remind us like alarm clock that we have to know where we are going. It's not, we turn that emotional kind of confrontation into a more like we negotiate our way and navigate our way to allow us, when I say us, the artists, to allow them to create work and to get support, to get some kind of, to get their own master to understand what is it that they are doing. And they have been, I think have been successful in doing that because there are actually those important master in town who actually now embracing that initiative and appreciate that, okay, you are actually doing something very interesting and very good. And so start with that confrontation, but going into that kind of more embracing. But there are still, the elder master who just say no for that forever or for the rest of their life, which is also okay. We believe that we can coexist, even we have maybe very different artistic philosophies. The performing arts audience, I'm not just saying traditional form or contemporary forms in Cambodia, is growing. The younger generation, the university student, the high school student are more interested in going to traditional, to performing art events, which is great. But the one thing that is missing is that we are having a lot of audience, but not always a lot of paying audience. So we actually have crowd going to see the show, but not a lot of them are the people who would think that they would be spending $10 or $15 to buy ticket. To them, it's not. It's a challenge. A production, we used to do one production. It was very popular. We used the social media to get like everyone in town to talk about it. And the ticket was sold. It was 1,200 ticket. It was sold in 5 days. And we got like around $8,000, 8,000 US dollar from the ticket sale. And that ticket from $5 to $25. 5 days, we sold it all. And the production cost was like around $30,000. So that is what? That is like 30%? No, even less than 30% of that. So the audience are growing, but the culture of paying audience is not there yet, and it's being developed because I think the Asian or maybe in this Thai or Cambodian or Vietnam or in Laotian kind of audience, they are very used to the village performance where we are all going to see in the community. We see the performance and it's part of the community. It's not the Western idea of selling ticket and going to the show. So going to an art is more as being part of communities, and at the current society we are trying to develop and change their mindset to understand this a little bit, and it's ongoing. Thank you for your question. Thank you.
So now we learn a lot more about arts performing in Cambodia. Okay. You made it. We have our last speaker, and she's got her master in directing from the Actors Studio Drama School, New School, University, New York. She also was chosen to be the member of the Actors Studio, where previously some famous and renowned stars, actors and actresses, for example, Paul Newman, Jack Nicholson, Julia Roberts, and Al Pacino were the former members. Currently, she is a full-time lecturer at Department of Dramatic Arts, Faculty of Arts,ฬาลงกรณ University. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Assistant Professor พันภาษาทูปเทียน
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming and waiting for my presentation today. So I would like to talk about the presentation. My topic is Mathani Ratanin, who combined Eastern and Western theater in Thailand. Mathani Modala Ratanin was born in May 1st, 1937 in Bangkok. She came from a middle-class family, and her parents gave high priority to the education of their children. Mathani had trained Thai dance and ballet dance since she was young and began her education at Vattana Vithayalai School until finished high school. She graduated with the 14th highest score ranking in the country. However, Mathani was not a hardworking student in her early school years, but when she saw all her siblings doing well in school, she started to work harder and got outstanding results. Mathani was a student who loved to join all school activities and also a leader of many school projects, especially in performing arts. Mathani loved to go watch performance at National Theatre since she was very young, and always adapted those Thai classical dances to regular spoken words plays and performed with her friends in school. Mathani said that she loved doing theater because it's fun, it urges creativity and imagination in ourselves. That's why she enjoyed being a playwright, a director, and an actress. In school, even though she had been taught strictly, Mathani was not always a good student for the teacher. She had a nature of thinking outside the box since childhood. She tended to question the rules and always made her own decisions by herself. That is why even though Mathani was a star in school, she had always been punished by the teacher for breaking some rules all the time. One of Mathani's outstanding talents was her ability in the languages. At the age of just 14, Mathani competed and was selected as a representative of Thai students to meet with international students around the world at the invitation of International Herald Tribune magazine, the New York Times in the United States. After graduated from the high school, Mathani went to study at the Faculty of Arts,ฬาลงกรณ University, with the third highest score in the entrance exam. However, tired of living in the strict regulation, Matani decided to take the government scholarship, got second ranked in the country, and moved to study in the United States since her freshman year. Matani chose a major of French language and literature and minor in fine art and American literature at Wellesley College, Massachusetts. Going to school alone was hard for a young girl to find and adjust to the new environment. At first, Matani was very depressed, and her professor suggested her to consult the university's clinic. Nonetheless, Matani never gave up and refused to go back home. She moved to stay at the clinic for a while until her state of mind began to recover. Then she went back to study. During this time, the theater had tremendous influence in her life. It helped her to enjoy studying more, and she began to pay great attention to the theater since then. Finally, Matani managed to graduate with the honors degree. In addition to studying very hard at the university, Matani has also taken additional courses outside schools, such as ballet classes and interior design. After graduation, she then went to study for a master's degree in French literature and drama at Sorbonne and the Middlebury Graduate School in Paris. During this time, Matani had more opportunity to absorb the art of theater and took the course in directing and performing Shakespeare theater at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in London. After that, Matani decided to pursue her PhD in theater at the School of Oriental and African Studies, also as at the University of London. With a scholarship from the Rockefeller Foundation and received the certificate in television directing and producing from BBC and the Royal Society of Television in London. During that time, Western theater in Thailand was not famous in Thai society, even though it first came to Thailand since the reign of King Rama V, and became very popular during the reign of King Rama VI. It began to fade from the audience interest due to the war and the coming of the movie. In 1970, Western theater began to gain its popularity since once again when Sotsai Pantum Gomon came back to teach dramatic arts atฬาลงกรณ์ University. After she graduated from the UCLA and spent several years as a movie star in Hollywood. A few years after that, Matani had completed her doctoral degree and came back home to become a professor at Thammasat University. We could state that Sotsai and Matani, who are now a national artist in performing arts, were the pioneers of modern theater in Thailand. Matani started her career at the Faculty of Liberal Arts, Thammasat University. At that time, there was no Department of Dramatic Arts, so she began teaching English literature and produced stage productions as student activities. For Matani, the ideology of making theater was not only to contribute knowledge to her students, but also an essential mission for society and the nation. Matani once said that, as a theater teacher, we need to ask ourselves that whether our works are making the society better or not. We have to look at everything positively and find the deflection in our society. We need to help each other with the ability God has given us to convey our thoughts. We may be right or wrong. It doesn't matter. But people need to see the various aspects of things around us. Our theater must not be a ridiculous entertainment. Many theaters in the market are full of the nonsense jokes which are time wasting. We have seen a much good drama that used as a medium of education. We must produce media of thought and media of freedom. From this philosophy, Matheny had carefully chosen the plays that had artistic values for Thai audience. In 1971, Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman was her first production. Matheny wrote about her interpretation of this play. The life of Thai people in this angel city or Krung Thep was not far away from the life of Willie Loman, the American salesman in New York, where the economy was collapsed after World War II. The trade system is exploited. The capitalism is inhumane and full of beneficial. Everyone needs to kill one another to survive. In a capital like this, there is no space for the old man and the dreamer like Willie Loman. He has to fight for it, but he cannot understand the business system. However, he is still stubborn to win, despite knowing that this system must crush him to death. Also, Willie Loman is all of us, who are ordinary people, grassroots, which is the foundation of the nation and society. However, he is abandoned to fight like a blind man, and finally he is left to die like a tramp dog. Arthur Miller has created this great play from the imaginary life of a small New Yorker. Willie Loman is low man, and with will or a great dream to fight for his dignity in challenging social system. However, the dream is just a dream of a salesman with a possibility. It is evident that Matheny has brought great literary knowledge to use in dramatic interpretation. Her challenge in the first production was not how to interpret the play, but how to create it in the empty theater of Thammasat University's Minutes Hall. At that time, there was no single stage light, except from can lights that Matheny borrowed from her friends. All students had to build a stage from old woods and decorate it with painted old rags. But Matheny did not fight alone. She knew that theater is about collaboration. To do theater, you have to be good, but you also have to have good teammates to create together. Matheny invited Gary Darwin as assistant director and Sushavadi Thanavanit as another assistant. In addition, she had the students who practiced and learned together. After Death of a Salesman launch, Mom Luang Kuklit Pramod wrote positive review in highly admired the production. Consequently, it received more interest from the audience. And most importantly, His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej and Her Majesty Queen Sirikit had attended the performance as well. After that, Matheny went on to make plays with her students every year, including a streetcar named Desire by Tennessee Williams and Our Wilderness by Eugene O'Neill. Then, Thammasat drama entered the second period. Matheny began to adapt the script to become more Thai context. The plays during this period were Antigone, My Fair Lady, The Importance of Being Earnest, Susie Tai Hao, Oedipus, and Mabia. King Rama VI had initiated the adaptation of many Western plays, and those plays are still so valuable and so popular today. So adaptation is not new to the Thai audience. However, we cannot deny that those who can adapt the script well have to know both in literature and context of the two cultures. and Mathani was one of the best Thai theater practitioners who could adapt the script very well. Mathani used to say that she wanted the audience to understand the script by bringing the context and characters closer to them. The key is to make it easy. Thai people used to watch traditional dance theater so they can take a spoken play for only 20 minutes before they fall asleep. After she wanted to make the Western script accessible to the ordinary audience, not only educated ones. So the intention was to change the script to be easy to understand with the most common language and the most contemporary. Mathani had also adapted the script linked to the current situation in Thailand as a reflection such as Antigone, which adapted from the script of Chong and Nui. It was written during World War II, when the Nazis came to rule France. It is about how youth to be used as the political matter. The event is similar to the 14th of October in Thailand. The Thai military and students were invited to watch the play together. It got a lot of criticism, but Mathani said she was not afraid. She didn't want to take on either side. She just wanted the audience to be open-minded and learn to understand each other a little bit more. The third period of Mathani's work, she focused on writing the original play or adaptation that entirely changed from the original context and also transformed the novels into the plays. Mathani also started to act in several plays. In this period, the production includes ฝันที่เป็นจริง บุษบาอุณากัน ซูสีซูอัน ฝันของจูเลียต รักเธอชั่วนิรันดร์ and รามาสีดา I'd like to use Sin Pandin as an example of her work in this period. Mathani used the plot from Euripides, the woman of Troy, as she wanted to celebrate the years of peace at that time. Mathani described that the language was too difficult to understand. We have to agree that the woman of Troy or the Trojan woman of Euripides is a matter of universal humanity. People are suffering from the war. Destroyed women are representing women in the world as mothers and children who lost their children and father in the war. It also portrays the human who face the political, economic, and social crisis. It reflects the life of our world and our society. Because of this, we should use the style and atmosphere that most Thai audience can connect with. She then changed the context from Greek to Japanese instead of Thai. Because the situation in Japan was closer to the Greeks. Thai society and people are very different from the Greek society in religious beliefs, culture, and thoughts. Therefore, Mathani chose to adapt this play to the middle-aged Japanese society, which full of warfare between the cities. Moreover, ruled by the merciless warlords similar to ancient Greek society. Also, the belief of the sun and many gods in those days are similar to the traditional mythology and historical fictions of ancient Greeks. In the field of academic works, Professor Mathani was played an important role in Thai theater as well. Mathani is the key person who founded Faculty of Fine and Applied Arts at Thammasat University. In addition, she wrote many theater articles and the two major English textbooks, The Siamese Theater and another book, Dance, Drama and Theater in Thailand, The Process of Development and Modernization. Mathani wrote about the history of Thai drama. She also describes the meaning of Thai drama such as cone dance, grand shadow puppet, as well as analyzed the evolution of Thai theater from the absolute monarchy to the regime under the leadership of the government. These are the important sources for foreign scholars to understand Thai dramas deeply. Nowadays, all these articles and books have been widely cited by scholars throughout the world. From these contributions, Mathani was selected to be a research fellow of the American Council of Learned Societies, and she was invited to lecture at the Yale School of Drama, and many well-known institutes all over the world. Throughout the working life of Professor Dr. Mathani Ratanin, who is a teacher, a scholar, a director, a playwright, a designer, and an actress. We cannot deny that Mathani is an essential figure in the Thai and international theater. Mathani has received awards from many institutions, including the Lifetime Achievement Award from the International Association of Theatre Critics Thailand Center, and Naratip Prapanpong Award, Naratipong Prapan Award, and the National Artist Award. But one thing Mathani always teaches her students is we should not seek for fame, but we should seek for happiness in the heart. The letter that Mathani wrote to the students stated that, lastly, I wanted to say that the song, Reach for the Stars, that we used to sing, I want you to reach for a star in the heart, rather than scramble for fame and money. This will make us more than happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Assistant Professor Pasapan Thuptian. And I also would like to express my heartfelt thanks to all the participants and also our distinguished speakers from Malaysia, from Singapore, from Indonesia, from UNESCO Bangkok and United Nations, and also from Thailand. This is a very interesting international conference, Prominent Women in the ASEAN Community. Celebrations of the 110th birth anniversary of Professor Tan Pu Ying Punsap Nopawong na Ayutthaya. And also, for the last announcement, please don't forget to drop in the evaluation form. This is very important because your opinion will be valuable for improving the quality of the next conference. And I hope you will come back and join us next time if we organize this kind of conference. Thank you so very much. Have a safe and nice trip back to home country. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ